do this. And I'm Jason. I'm with Paul Van Tine, spelled V-A-N space T-I-N-E. Move your chair up a little bit closer. We just got done bonding over a rigorous workout. So Paul, say hello.
Hello.
Nice, powerful voice. Here are the ground rules. No eye gouging.
All right.
No hitting below the belt from the back. Anyway, Paul, let's set the stage. Hey, do you want an easy question or a hard one to start with?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Why are you in the DMR? What is the DMR and why are you there?
Well, the story I usually tell when people ask, how I got out there was, as a kid, we'd go out to the Davis Mountain State Park and camp there on numerous occasions. It was always a favorite thing to do. And later in college, I would go to the Prude Ranch for the Texas Star Parties, which were, a lot of fun. Are you Texan? Yeah, I was born and raised in Texas. Mm-hmm. So, but you get a job, you forget about a place, and you move on. Well, a number of years back, around 97, 98, something like that, I was watching the evening news, and Dan Rather was droning on about some wingnut in Texas who had taken a bunch of hostages in the Davis Mountains. Uh-huh. So my ears kind of popped up. Not that the story per se, was astounding to me, because Texas is something like a fruitcake. It's packed full of nuts. You just kind of expect these stories. But it was the fact that it was occurring in the Davis Mountains, and so I watched, and as the camera panned back and forth, I kind of said to myself, I don't remember being that pretty. So 6 months later, I booked a flight and came out here, and I bought my first piece of land. A few years after that, I was working in Seattle in internet software and the .com business, and around 2001, they all fell flat on their face. And as that bubble burst, so I had changed positions in the company I was working for, so I was vulnerable, and I got laid off. It was all right. I was tired of it, but I didn't know where I was going to do or what I was going to do. I was 47 years old at the time, and in a city like Seattle, that's pretty daunting to try to rebuild your career at that age. So I decided I'd come on down here and moved out, cleared out, sold out, and moved into the Davis Mountains. It was the first time I'd ever lived in a ex-urban environment, but it was the best decision I ever made. I've been happier in my life here than I've ever been, and delighted that I came down and did it.
How did you get from Texas to Seattle? Was that just following the job path?
Well, to a degree, you either follow a job path or you follow somebody, a friend or a relative. In this particular case, it was my brother who was stationed in the Navy out in Bremerton, Washington. And he kept urging me to go out there, so I did. So naturally, he immediately gets reassigned to Honolulu, Hawaii. Not being a camp follower, I just stayed in Washington and really loved it there, and kind of bummed around until I fell into something that I found interesting, and which was a .com called Real Networks. And
they went under. They went under.
Oh, did they? No. They didn't go under, but they. Are
those guys who made the Real Player? The Real Player?
Yeah. I don't know if they're still doing that. Once I left, I kind of just stopped paying attention to the place. But anyway, it was living in Seattle was wonderful. A lot of good friends there. It's a beautiful spot when the sun bothers to come out. Mm-hmm. And but with a life-changing thing like that, I figured it was time to do something different. I own this property in Texas and wanted a sunnier, warmer climate, and here I am. Okay, so if you were to hear this and not know the lay of the land, not know you, not know the DMR, not know Marfa, your story might actually seem a little bit like kind of leaving the big city and finding a more tranquil paradise somewhere else. But I know through previous homework that you are an extraordinary, even by Marfan standards, an extraordinarily unusual set of characteristics. So I'm going to say them, and then we can talk about them. Gay Republican or conservative, would you say? Well, I'd say more conservative than Republican, yeah.
Yeah, but it's analytical enough to be libertarian.
Libertarian. Depending on any particular set of group of people that I'm around, any particular set of issues I'm talking about, people might interpret me as being a liberal Democrat if I'm talking about social issues.
Yeah.
If you talk about economic and other issues like that, they come to another conclusion. The end result is I have no easy or comfortable home, but I have opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And, we are what we are.
You're also you are not very ad hominem, which means whether I agree with you or not, you always have a logic and some evidence to back up what you say, as opposed to an angriness, which is, kind of dominant when people get riled up about politics. And so before you told me about your software experience, I would not have known where it came from, but now I'm kind of putting two and two together. Would you do that too? I mean, say that you're kind of a Matthew Sansi guy?
I'm not entirely sure who he is, but
math and science.
Oh, math and science. I don't know who Matthew Sansi is. Math and science, yes. I went into geology in college. Mm-hmm. With impeccable timing. As I was getting ready to complete a degree, the oil industry fell flat on its face, and people with 15, 20 years experience couldn't get a job anywhere. Mm-hmm. So I went abroad to school for a while and in a sense drifted until I got to Seattle and got settled into something else. And
another set of circumstances that I think is unusual even for Marfa is that you work here, you have a people person job, and yet you don't have a people person life, in my estimation, at least. But you live far away from people. Do you have a phone?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Does your phone work in the DMR?
Yeah, yes, it rings.
Okay.
People even call me.
Have you gone a time without electricity? I mean,
periodically we get power outages out there in major storms, or during the Rock House fire. All the power lines burned down, so we didn't have power out there for a while. But you learn to adjust. You learn to expect it. Mm-hmm. A lot of people out there have generators, and outside of the refrigerator, there isn't much out there that that we care about to keep operable.
But I'm remembering did you not have a car for a while? Or I'm remembering there was some very good reason why I could not get in touch with you. Maybe it was just that you lived in the DMR. You got up really, really early. I think.
Yeah.
What was that?
Well, I get up at 4:45, 5 in the morning. Mm-hmm. To get ready to come here, I have to be at the Paisano between 6:45 and 7.
Yeah.
And so as a result, I get up extremely early, and like many people like that, I go to bed pretty early. So mm-hmm. In that regard, I tend not to be available. But everybody in this town has 2 or 3 jobs. Everybody is busy, and mm-hmm. it's difficult to. If you don't write it down and make an appointment, it isn't going to happen.
And I glanced over this, but do you see any friction being a gay guy who has many Republican views and lives in a very kind of right-wingy state?
Texas is a good southern state. If you don't talk about something in the parlor, they could care less what you do in the bedroom. Mm-hmm. No, I've had this argument with some more liberal gay friends, and I said, I think I do more for understanding and acceptance by just living openly where I am with my partner, and no apologies about it. And it's paid some dividends in the DMR.
Do I know your partner?
I don't think you've ever met him. He's much more of a recluse than I am. And
does he work?
Yes, he does carpentry. He does a variety of other things. People need landscaping. He does iron work. It's wide, interesting accumulation of skills. Mm-hmm. He kind of takes care of the house, takes care of the dogs, hauls water, chops wood, does all the stuff that I just frankly don't have the time to do. So,
okay, let me make it interesting.
All right.
Let's say it's 2016. And there has been an economic meltdown. And I can't map this out too well for you, but for some reason you have a choice. You can spend the next 3 years on a desert island with me, or with Barack Obama? Who do you go for?
I think you would win.
Okay. So let me now give it a flip. Let's say that the United States is robust in having success like it's never known before.
Okay.
And you still are faced with this dilemma that you can spend your time on a desert island with me or Barack Obama.
I don't find Barack Obama particularly interesting, to tell you the truth. I think he's a narcissist. You get to know people, and you notice they begin to say the same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And
You're
Obama,
talking about me or Barack?
Barack.
Okay.
He seems to repeat himself all the time.
Yeah.
I have sympathy for the guy. Being president of the United States, that can't be easy. And I have no doubt in my mind, in his mind, he's doing what he thinks is best for the country.
Mm-hmm.
But, when you get elected president, you're guaranteed instantaneously 50% of the country is going to hate your guts.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, I wish him well. I don't particularly agree with his policies, but, he is what he is.
You know what's always struck me as an oxymoron is a public servant. Actually, I'll tell you, I thought about something this morning. We think of oxymorons as being, I think military intelligence is one of the funny ones.
Yeah.
But when someone says, I'm just asking, that is an oxymoron. No one is just asking. They have a reason why they're asking.
Yeah.
But in any case, I was going to say with public servant, no one has a job like these guys unless they're getting paid tons. They have tons of benefits. They're becoming famous. They can get like chicks, on the side and stuff like that. And it seems to me that by calling people public servant or by, mayors, governors or whatever, saying we're here to serve or something like that, they're starting off on the wrong foot. They're starting off with a lie or with not. If it's not a lie, at least it's acting. It's fraudulent.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I've noticed about your Bill Clintons and your Barack, even going back to Reagan and stuff, is they want to play it off as folksy as they can, so that this public servant thing seems a little bit more realistic.
Well, there's nothing new in this. Go all the way back to Benjamin Harrison and Tippecanoe and Tyler too. It was a fraud, but they've played this game on the American public forever. It continued. It'll go on. I
was going to say Teddy Roosevelt and Franklin Roosevelt. Those were guys who said, in Teddy Roosevelt's view, like, I'm the best man for the job because I'm the strongest and most adventurous. And Franklin Roosevelt saying, I was born to lead and all this stuff. So there are a handful of guys who didn't even play the game, and I thought that they did okay. But in any case, getting back to Barack Obama, this is an issue I have a little bit with him, as I have with most politicians, is I wish they would just kind of say cleanly, I think I'm the man for the job, I'm the only man for the job, and I'd like to lead. That's what's going on. And that explains a little bit of the politicking. Do you buy that? Or
no? Oh, yeah, I could accept that. But with Obama, what is it Valerie Jarrett said, that he's so intelligent that he's been bored most of his life? That may or may not be true.
Who said that?
Valerie Jarrett.
Who is she?
One of his closest advisors in the White House. But, there are two types of people who get elected president, in my opinion, those who get elected to do something and those who get elected to be someone. Mm-hmm. Trying to be nonpartisan about this, Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan were people who got elected to do something. Mm-hmm. They had specific things in mind they wanted to do, and they did their best to accomplish them. I'll leave it to other people to argue, the good or the bad of what they did accomplish. But that's something about both of them that I liked. And then you get, I'm trying to think of a Republican equivalent of Obama, and that's really kind of difficult. Mm-hmm. But, someone who is getting elected president to be president. Now, to his defense, he's grown up in a bubble. He's been told his entire life just how incredibly wonderful he is. I don't think he's ever up until the point that he ran for president, and it was a year in which, I think it would be physically impossible for a Democrat to have lost that election. So that he's never really been presented with opposition, and he doesn't know what to do with it. And I think his inability to deal with the Republicans in Congress, Johnson wouldn't have had this problem. And Nixon knew how to deal with the Democrats. Clinton would have just schmoozed them. Mm. But Obama, he's kind of lost there. He doesn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. He's the one, and why people can't just see that. And it's.
I thought Lyndon Johnson style, which was, get things done using all means necessary, seemed to be very effective at the time, but I don't think you could get away with that now.
Probably not.
I've heard that one of the reasons Johnson couldn't work his magic today is because he would promise different people different things at every state he went to, just thinking that the papers wouldn't cover it and no one would make the telephone call. And if you have the internet telling people what you actually said, then it just messes up your strategy if you're Lyndon Johnson.
Well, they tried that with Obamacare. I guess to a certain degree it worked. What did they call it? The Louisiana Purchase and the Cornhusker Kickback deals that were written into the law to get Mary Landrieu to vote for it, and who was some.
That's a Lyndon Johnson thing, and I read a story recently. I can't remember by who, lamenting the demise of corruption. Well, here's the guy's thinking: is that in the old days, if you wanted a bridge through your town or your state, and other people didn't want it, but you wanted to get it done, you could do things like say, I'll give you this envelope with money in it. You could say, I have some pictures of you with this lady. You would do all these. You say, I'll owe you a favor, and that's a little more sane. But the bottom line is you had all these ways of cajoling people to do things they wouldn't normally do because part of politics was recognized to be corruption. And now it's obviously seen as just the antithesis of integrity to do that stuff. And, maybe as far as I know, places like Sweden and Norway do get away without having any corruption and getting stuff done. But in a place as diverse as the United States, maybe you need a little elbow room.
Well, there are many people who have demised the death of the smoke-filled room. Mm-hmm. It produced some pretty good presidents. Now, whether you want to go back to all of the dirty dealing and corruption and things that used to be hidden in the shadows, that's debatable. But I don't know if our current system is currently structured as, dishing up to the American people the best possible candidates. Perhaps the system itself.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I think from the person-to-person view that we have, you're right. But if you look back from 100 years from now or something, you'll see a kind of a big lump. There will be like maybe FDR, Ronald Reagan will be bumps, kind of shifts in the road. But by and large, these will be considered like good times when the U.S. For a century at a shot was on top of the game. I could be wrong, but it seems like it's much easier for us to like lament that we're not getting the best guy or something like that.
Well, it's always what they say: best of times, worst of times. Always lament that. Where we are is always going to hell in a handbasket. Just one of these days they may be right.
We might be just showing the difference between, well, I don't know what I was going to say, a liberal and a conservative. Yeah. But my stance is not liberal. I consider my political stance just looking from a distance. Buying gold, I did that once and got burned because the world didn't collapse. So I know that I'm not going to do it again. Listening outrageous people, I used to get angry about it. Now I feel like there are three ways to deal with me, if you're ever curious. But also, in terms of anyone who says outrageous stuff, you can laugh, ignore, or refute. But this idea of kind of stewing in your own juices, I feel like I've outgrown that a little bit.
Well, I think clearly the people I tend to gravitate towards, people I tend to like, you don't take these things too terribly seriously. You things you believe in, things you may even be passionate about, but the idea of doing ad hominem attacks on somebody else because they don't share your views, that's pretty ridiculous. I would say 60%, 70% of my closest friends don't share my views. Mm-hmm. We sometimes have vigorous arguments, vigorous conversations, disagreements, but it doesn't really matter when the...
I find Marfa to be one of the most civil towns in terms of disagreements, maybe because you got to see and deal with that person the next day, but also because since you can't get away without dealing with them, that means you actually have to, ultimately, at some point, you're going to have to use reason to justify what you said. And I also find Marfa, which is a liberal town in the midst of a conservative area, to be pretty diverse as far as the political view goes. And just to give you the opposite of that, where I live in Los Angeles, there are not conservatives. Or if there are conservatives, they stay home at night and read a book, and I haven't seen them.
There's, I can't remember the name of the political prognosticator who talks about the great sorting out in this country. It's a new segregation based not so much on race, but on attitude and perhaps income. People of...
Oh, I think I heard about this. Tell me more.
The conservatives, your more Republican type, however you want to, term them, are attracted to a Dallas, to some of the suburban, exurban areas. They are becoming increasingly Republican, increasingly conservative, while the same sort as people that flood into the inner cities, turning them into liberal bastions.
So it's kind of self-gerrymandering.
Exactly. And the result, people aren't talking to each other anymore.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I've really enjoyed about the DMR is they had the country store there for a long time, and people would meet on the steps there and discuss the issues of the day, kind of like you would imagine some mythical Mayberry.
Does that still go on?
To a certain extent, although the Phyllis closed the store down.
No, why?
Operating a small business out there on a shoestring is not the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah, I guess not. But she had an audience, a captive target demographic. I mean, where else are these DMR people going to go when they need batteries or a candle or something?
Well, like a lot of people who think deeply about these subjects, they'll spend $5 in gas to go to Alpine to get it for 10 cents cheaper.
I see.
So, that was part of it. But these people would gather out on the steps, and, some of these people, are pretty far out there, but we were all in the mix together, and you learn to tolerate each other and to accept these views. And anything from Stone Club bearskin conservatives to virtual anarchists out there.
Well, you've just, again, underscored my resentment of the people who think deeply about things. Not only are they ruining the party, but they're also ruining the economy. Well, that's a shame. I hope that someone takes over that store and runs it again.
Well, they're thinking about opening it again, so... you know Phyllis?
No, I just know the store.
Okay. Anyway.
So let's get back to the local front again. How did you end up here? We're at the Paisano, and what is this place called? Mezzanine?
The sunroom on the mezzanine floor.
Sunroom, which has never really been used. And this is the only part of... this hotel is allegedly haunted, but this is the only part of the hotel that actually, when it's dark out, reminds me of The Shining. But how'd you end up here?
At the Paisano, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there isn't a whole lot of jobs in this region that, took care of or would make use of my particular skill sets that I brought here, and especially in 2001. A lot of things just simply weren't here. Marfa was still pretty much down at the heel, with the exception of the Chinati and the Judd Foundations. So I, ran into Lana Duncan, and she suggested I come out here and apply for this job. It's an extremely easy job. You meet a lot of pleasant people. It's gotten, more complicated as the hotel has gotten busier over the years, but it's been a wonderful place to kind of park myself as, I approach the age where I can start thinking about retirement.
When you're working at this job, do you occasionally think to yourself, I never thought the path of life would take me here?
Oh, yeah, of course. Everybody as a kid wonders, well, what am I going to be doing when I'm 30 or I'm 40? Or, well, I'm almost 60, and I certainly wasn't considering doing this. Mm-hmm. But it's okay. I'm looking forward to eventually retiring and then being able to have the freedom and the time to, experience other things and to try out other things. Mm-hmm. But for the moment, it's just fine.
2001 in Marfa? What was that like? That's when you got here.
It was, I didn't start working at Marfa at that time until 2003, but 2001 in Marfa, this place was pretty down at the heel. Paisano was boarded up. The bookstore had opened up, but there was precious little else in this town.
Who were your friends?
My friends were, essentially were concentrated in the DMR at that time.
Wow. I'm looking at you like I'm looking at a guy who's much weirder than I thought.
Well, that's probably true.
Because the DMR in 2001 was still associated with seceding from the United States and paying the price. The DMR was, a few steps towards normal from Waco in 2001.
Well, that is the reputation, and with McLaren there, part of it was well deserved, but most of the people out there hated that man with purple passion for what he did to them, for the disruption that he caused, and some of the unsavory characters that he drew out there. There are very few permanent residents out there that had anything to do with this, and they were just as sick and tired of him as anybody else. Of course, I think I owe the man a tremendous debt of gratitude. He ran land values out there so low that I picked up enormous bargains.
Uh-huh. Do you have more than one property out there?
Yeah, at one point I had bought up to 6 different parcels out there, and I have since been selling them off. But one of them I got for $800 in an auction, and those days are long gone, of course. But it was that very reputation that made the land so cheap out there. And I went out and looked around with a little bit of apprehension and realized these are perfectly nice, normal people. Some of them are a different type of normal, but nevertheless...
and we should highlight that it is, what's the word I'm looking for? Egalitarian. What's the word I'm looking for? It is variety, idiosyncratic. I mean, there is no typical DMR person. You would think that the DMR... No, seriously, if you talked about the DMR and you told people it's this place in the mountains, and you think, well, it's got these rugged individualists, guys like with beards and like old shotguns, like the Beverly. But the truth is, you have some of the most refined, scholarly people that I know living out there. You have incredibly liberal, incredibly conservative people. You have all types of social inclinations out there. It's really not what the stereotype that I make of it when I joke around is.
Well, it's okay. The one resident out there who I think understands the place, better than most, he said people who go out there either running from something or to something. Mm-hmm. Because there have been a large number of people over the years that are kind of hiding out in the DMR.
Yeah.
Others, they're just escaping from the excesses of the 20th century, looking for a beautiful environment, a calmer way of life.
Who's your police force out there?
There isn't one. If you need the constabulary, you call the Jeff Davis Sheriff's Department.
Mm-hmm. And they take 2 hours to get there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So solve it yourself.
I always love it when new people move out there. One of the first things they do is they put up a big security light. All it does is illuminate the place. If someone wants to do something nefarious, it makes it easier to rob.
Thank you. It was hard to pick this lock before, but now
they could have hauled off half the contents of the house before the sheriff gets out there.
Yeah.
So it doesn't serve a whole lot of purpose. People look out after each other there, and who, for the most part, is supposed to be there and who isn't.
Who are your friends in Marfa?
Oh gosh, the people I would put on the top of the list there, I like Connie and Rusty Nelson enormously. Mm-hmm. I love Lupita Rivera, who I work with. She is one of the most extraordinary personalities I've ever met. And
really? Should I talk to her?
You should. You definitely should.
Okay.
And it's been a joy to get to know her. I've met a lot. I've got some good friends that I've made through the fire department.
Oh yeah, talk about that for a bit, because you were just saying that you you got some hard tests coming up.
Oh yeah, the keep yourself in shape to pass the physicals, and it's something I really love. I never would have expected it. Mm-hmm. I didn't really come out here with any intention of doing this. I always jokingly like to tell people that I got drafted. I went to a meeting of the board of directors out at the DMR. It was about a month after I'd moved here, and the local fire chief there was giving a report. And he took a look at me and kind of looked up and down, and he just, in a kind of blunt way, said, "How old are you?" I said, "Well, I'm 47. He goes, "Are you in good health?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "You're in the fire department." I just kind of went, "Okay," and never imagined that I would really love it as much as I have.
Oh, how many people?
There's about 10 or 12 people out there that take it seriously.
That's a lot. That's far more, obviously, than you would have if you were paying the people to do it.
Yeah, it's a the Tocquevillian type association and voluntarism, and it's not for everybody, obviously.
So there seems to be a certain strain of anarchism in your life. I don't mean anarchy in the spray paint on dumpster kind of thing, but just like you live in a place without a police force. You have a lot of volunteer stuff going on. Not necessarily told that you have to do this stuff, but you do it anyway. Do you think that is from the same part of your personality that favors libertarian?
Oh, probably. I wouldn't bore anybody with my philosophy, but in a place out there, you have to have a certain degree of self-sufficiency. Mm-hmm. Something breaks, you've just pretty much got to deal with it. Yeah. If you have problems out there, if you're flooded in, the list can be innumerable.
A lot.
A lot. Mm-hmm. So, somebody who's too particularly needy probably would not find that place very inviting.
Yeah, I guess not. And yet, needy, right? That's a good way of saying it. I mean, you don't need to be what's the word? You don't need to be like a physical kind of pioneer man, Superman to live out there. But you don't. It doesn't favor people who are emotionally needy.
Very true.
Hey, let's go a little bit more. But I want to know: was Marfa in 2001 hip, or was it? I mean, were the friends you made here like arty people in 2001? Or
I have some good friends in the. Or people I consider friends in the art community here, but I've never really been much part of it. Mm-hmm. Quite frankly, and I'm sure the limitation is mine, I don't understand a lot of it. Being a fireman, we go out on wrecks, and I see this stuff in the Chamberlain exhibit, and that just looks like a wreck to me.
I'm laughing because I don't think you really are telling the truth when you say when you're sure the fault is mine. I don't think you actually think if I just went to grad school, I think I would appreciate this.
If I had read that Kurt Vonnegut novel or whatever, but we all have our strengths and our weaknesses. We all have our interests, and frankly, a lot of what passes for the art scene here in Marfa just eludes me. But that's all right. Yeah, I accept it at face value.
Well, it eludes me too, but that's just the product. What I do really like and appreciate about Marfa is the process, meaning that to get a smashed up car in a museum or to get a box, you have to have these kind of vibrant personalities who don't take no for an answer, who think that doing something crazy is a good way to live your life. And that's what I appreciate about Marfa's art scene. So there is a certain kind of bias strain which says, all these sissy boys wearing glasses and plaid shirts come to town. Frankly, that might be true with a certain number of art appreciators, but I don't think that's true with the guys who create this stuff. I think that they have a real renegade spirit, and they don't give a fuck about what other people think, and I love that.
Well, there are two extraordinary artists here in Marfa that are members of the fire department, Michael Roche and Sam Schonside. Oh, yeah. And, their stuff is fascinating.
I'm kind of, knock on wood, I want Sam to become famous, and or get hit by a truck or something, save a cat from a burning building, because I bought so much of his stuff that I'm kind of investing in it. Like that's my gold or my land. That's my warehouse for the future.
Well, I trust you'll.
So it's good that he's working for the fire department.
Yeah. Marfa is so fascinating. You meet people like Julie Speed who can do incredible things with a skull. Mm-hmm. Bonita, when she blows through town, is just
blow through town is correct. It's like a tornado.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And many more that I could tick off, but and
they're the real deal.
They are.
Someone like Bonita is like. She's going to do art regardless of whether she lives in like a Lincoln cabin or, a 5-star hotel.
She's so much fun. She talks about when she was living in Truth or Consequences, but she calls it Face the Consequences. Uh-huh. And her life in Connecticut, or Connect the Dots, as she puts it. It's, Bonita is a good example of the type of individual that you can encounter here on a regular basis. And that makes it a lot of fun to live in Marfa.
Let me ask you some questions, revealing questions that will tell me everything we need to know about you.
Okay.
When was the last time you ate in a restaurant?
Ate in a restaurant? Oh gosh, that's a curveball. Does Mondo's count?
Sure. Mondo's counts. Yeah, Mondo's
No
counts.
slam on Mondo's. I love it. We don't tend to go out much. I go home and we prepare the food at home, and I come to Marfa to work. I come to Marfa to participate in the fire department. I go over to see friends, but it's just rare that we go out to eat.
Okay, so a long time ago.
It's a long time. That has something to do with working at a service industry job. As desirable as they are, they don't tend to pay quite the big city levels.
Yeah, okay. When was the last time you saw a band?
Not terribly long ago, I went to see a band at Planet Marfa that was playing. I haven't gone to Padres in quite some time.
Yeah.
But I'd often go out with friends to the Lost Horse, and they have some interesting groups there.
Have you secretly, or if not secretly, quietly written a book that you do not tell people about unless they ask specifically?
No, I think that's the short, succinct answer. I dabble at writing periodically, and usually end up just deleting it. Kind of like, I don't know who it was that would write his symphonies and then burn them. Maybe one day I will get over that. I have an idea of a little article I want to write for the Cenizo to try to break through that boundary, and I'll be interested to see if I can motivate myself to do that.
What's the story idea?
That's the idea of end of the road. The DMR is a unique place, and it seems like more of the interesting people I've ever encountered live at the end of a road down there. And to me, it would be interesting to relate some of those personalities and types that have found home there and what they've done.
And you seem to be concerned about like health and knowledge in almost a clinical way, as opposed to, I want to exercise, let's go play softball, or I'm learning German because I want to make new German friends. It's more like my body needs to exercise and my mind needs to be, cultivated. Is that right? Or is there seems clearly there's a certain amount of joy. Maybe not that treadmill thing, but the intellectual stuff which you do.
Working at some of these jobs, they're not intellectually stimulating. They're never going to be. You meet some interesting people, but you got to do something in your life to shake it up. You got to do something to keep your mind active. And this is one particular hobby that I've latched onto and will continue working with.
Well, I disagree with you. I've done a few service jobs since I've been in Marfa, and I find that you can make them intellectually satisfying, depending what you talk to people about. And frankly, they all ask you questions. If you return with a question, that usually turns into something fairly interesting. If you're a bartender or if you're working at the desk here, your job is to answer questions. But the intellectual strategy to kind of make yourself get through the day is to ask them right back, and to ask stuff that they would normally not have to deal with. You're not going to see them again, so you can take a few risks, particularly when they're on the way out anyway.
Oh, that's true. The one of the real benefits of this job is some of the interesting people you do get a chance to meet, and they come from all over the world to Marfa. I think that's any particular secret, and most of them end up staying at the Paisano, and I've had some really interesting conversations from people from every walk of life, from every corner of the globe, and it's interesting to ask them why they've come here and get their impression of the area.
Would you consider doing Talk at 10 interviews? I mean, being the interviewer?
Well, I'd certainly consider it. My main problem is just sheer time.
Yeah.
It takes an hour to commute back and forth. It's 2 hours out of the day. The other commitments that you have, it's difficult to sandwich stuff in. But of course, you do what's most important to you. If it's important, you find the time.
Mm-hmm. Are you on the internet much?
No, not overwhelmingly. I read. I just don't really have much time for it. I do some at work. Keep up with news. If you have a particular subject that you're interested in, you do some research on it.
But why aren't you more trivial like I am? I mean, I'm semi-serious. Are you just not interested in, the kind of hodgepodge of daily culture? Like, who made this song? Who, took off her clothes there? And who, got caught DUI over here? That kind of thing?
I dropped out of popular culture about 1971 and have never looked back since. People talk about. My partner loves to do this. He'll have some, piece of popular music on that is one of his favorites, and he goes, who's singing this? And I go, I don't know. And this dates from my high school days when I didn't particularly like what I saw around me. I didn't particularly like the environment that I was in, and as a result, I just kind of tuned it out.
Where'd you grow up?
Fort Worth, Texas.
Fort Worth in the early 70s?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. Well, let's see. Let's wrap her up, I guess. Have you anything to add? Oh, so I want to ask you this. Is there a gay culture in Marfa? You're clearly not part of it, if there is one.
If it is, it's eluded me. It's not like there's not gay people in...
No, but they don't...
But I mean, it's... if I wanted to live in a gay ghetto, I'd never have left Seattle. Mm-hmm. It doesn't interest me in the slightest. What there is a culture in Marfa of which there are a substantial number of gay people. Mm-hmm. They don't tend to hang out together or anything like that. No. They're, it's not Rainbow Night at Padres or something like that. And like most of us, we just, do our thing. You have your set of friends. And no, I wouldn't really say there is much of one.
Okay. And then surely you have some questions for me.
It always fascinates me what keeps drawing you back to Marfa. Mm-hmm. Marfa's an interesting town, but what is it about Marfa that...
Well, except for this very last time, I feel it is a combination of running away and running to something. And I just find that Marfa, and this is the weirdest thing, but this is why I like it, I find that Marfa is kind of, in many respects, to my preferences, a little Los Angeles, but without all the hassle. People are working on projects and stuff. People love media stuff. They love plays, art, movies, stuff like that. People are almost to a fault easy to meet and get to know within an hour. They'll in Los Angeles, they'll start telling you their life story, and yet you don't have the hassle of the driving everywhere. Of just everything in a big city is harder to do, at least in LA. So I like them both, but I find Marfa a more approachable version of the latter.
Is there something in particular you want to accomplish in this town?
I just feel like my time's running out because all the stuff I want to accomplish, I don't think I can. I tell people kind of like Leonardo da Vinci aspirations and Donald Duck skills. I want to make a movie. I want to write a book. I want to build stuff. There's almost nothing I don't want to do, and which is one of the reasons I think I've found that these interviews are easy for me because I'm interested in pretty much everything. But, I just don't have the money or the skills to do them. And those two things are a seesaw. I mean, I think if you have unbelievable talents, you don't need the money. If it's easy, if you're one of these guys who can work out a theory of physics by working at a patent office, you don't need the decades of PhD, pursuit. On the other hand, if you're one of these people who doesn't have, it's going to take you forever to fix up this house and build your dream casita, you need a ton of cash.
Yeah.
So short of both those things, I'm kind of like wavering in the middle with a lot of ideas and a lot of aspirations, and hopefully I'll just get a handful of them tackled. And I find that Marfa is an easy place to do that. It's the margins, the barriers to entry are slim.
That's true. It's an extraordinarily accepting community. Mm-hmm. At all levels.
Yeah. Though the police here are getting obnoxious.
Well, there's a certain Officer Salinas that's, on everybody's top 10 parade lately.
Why can't we get rid of them?
I don't know. I think this particular one is a black and white, a state trooper.
Mm-hmm.
So we might have a little bit more influence over that. But the sheriff's department here is a kingdom unto itself, and they do pretty much what they want.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Enjoyed it.
A handshake, and we'll talk soon.
All right.
Okay.